Hello there, Internet. My name is Austin Bach, and I'm back with another Magic the Gathering combo deck to make your opponents cry. So my channel's been on a bit of a hiatus lately. It's been quite a while since I uploaded my last video, but I have been dabbling in Pioneer lately, and I've got a deck brewed up that I am pretty proud of, and I wanted to show it off to the world. So this is a deck built around Flood of Tears, which is an M20 card. It came out about, what's it been, 9 months now since M20 came out? This is a card I was trying to break pretty hard when it was in Standard, but the pieces just weren't quite there in Standard, so I had to shelve the project. But as it turns out, the pieces are all there in Modern, or in Pioneer rather, but also in Modern. And I think it can be a pretty powerful deck if it's built correctly, so that's what I'm going to try to do. This is version, let's call it 2.0, after a few failed attempts. So the way this card works, 6 mana to basically bounce all non-land permanents. However, if you bounce 4 of your own permanents, you get to put a permanent into play for free, which is where good old Omniscience comes into play. So you're playing a bunch of cheap artifacts and enchantments, stuff that are hard to remove, such as Omen of the Sea, Prophetic Prism, cards that just draw you cards for cheap. Oath of Jace, similarly, 1 mana more, but digs you deeper into your deck. Dictate of Crewfix, just both players get a bunch of extra cards, but we don't care too much about them getting cards for reasons we'll discuss later. And then once you get those all into play, you play the Flood of Tears, and put Omniscience into play, and then just keep chaining through your deck. So you may be wondering, okay, what do you do after that? Well, it turns out that Tamio, Collector of Tales combos perfectly with Flood of Tears because of the -3 ability. So you play Flood of Tears, put in Omniscience, then you play Tamio, -3, returning the Flood of Tears, and you replay all of your cantrips, replay the Flood of Tears, put the Omniscience back into play, and then you get to reset your Tamio, so you just get to -3 every time you cycle through a Flood of Tears. So you do get to go infinite, as long as you have a Tamio and at least 1 cantrip, and then you get to draw your deck. And then once you draw your deck, basically the objective is just to play the Thassa's Oracle and win the game. But what do you do in the meantime before you assemble everything you need for the Flood of Tears? It does cost 6 mana. You have to get to turn 6 at least because we have no mana acceleration. So we've got 8 Fogs. We've got Fog itself, the OG, and Haze of Pollen, which cycles, which can be useful in a matchup where Fogs aren't that useful. The Dictate, I mentioned earlier we don't mind giving them cards. That's mostly because of Fog and Haze of Pollen. But it can be a nuisance if they're playing like Disruption, like Abrupt Decay, Thoughtseize, that kind of thing. However, Narset does actually happen to combo pretty well with the Dictate of Crewfix, because it prevents them from drawing additional cards. So it's like a one-sided Howling Mine, which is pretty nice. As for the lands, just got a smattering of blue-green duels. We only need green basically for the Fogs and Tamio in the main, plus some sideboard options. But we have plenty of green sources between, 14 green producing lands, plus the Prophetic Prisms can make green. So we can afford to play some utility lands, just Radiant Fountains to stay alive, Zhalfirin Voids to dig through the deck a little faster. And then for the sideboard, as is tradition, this isn't a super well thought out sideboard, but just a smattering of options I think could be useful. Heroic Intervention is nice for when your opponents have instant speed interaction with your Planeswalkers specifically. So like one way to disrupt the combo would be if you go like Flood of Tears, Omniscience, and then try to Tamio back a, your Flood of Tears and they have a Murderous Rider or whatever. Then you can just Heroic Intervention. Can also be useful in other corner case scenarios, but that's the main case. Return to Nature, just a little catch-all. Navigator's Compass, in case we're playing against aggro. Pithing Needle for whatever problematic permanents we need to deal with. And Swan Song, which is kind of a pet card of mine. I played this card a lot back when Storm was a hot modern deck. And it's especially nice in our deck because we don't mind giving them birds. Because, for one, we're bouncing the board with Flood of Tears, and we're also using Fog, Haze of Pollen to stop combat. So that just them having one creature isn't that big of a deal usually. And this has the additional reach of hitting like sorceries and enchantments as opposed to something like Dispel, which is what we'd be playing otherwise in case we play against combo, or against control, excuse me. But yeah, that's the main crux of the deck. I'm trying to think if I forgot about anything, but I think I covered just about everything. And I guess the best way to explain how the deck works is just to show you. So let's dive into some matches.